Okay, hi everyone. This is Chantal from Therapy with Chantal. I'm here with Hannah. Is it Antony? Am I pronouncing the last name correctly?
Exactly, yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Hannah is a private practice physiotherapist who grew up in Calgary and spent the last 5 years in Australia, completing her master's and working. That's really cool. I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Hannah is now back in Calgary, enjoying being back in the mountains, hiking on the weekends, and being able to start back up with her co-ed soccer team. So you were in Australia for 5 years.
Yeah, quite different. Obviously the climate here in Calgary and that side of things, but yeah, just a really great experience to get out there to study. And then like I got another visa, so I was able to work out there, which was really great. And then even pre-COVID, we decided that we were going to come back and then, yes, start up back.
Okay. Is there like something that you absolutely miss about living there or working there?
That I just miss about Australia. So like from Calgary, we have the mountains like so close, but that was where I was in Brisbane. The beach was that close, and those things where while you're there, you almost take it for granted a little bit. So now that we're not there, I definitely miss that side of things.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Do you see yourself traveling again once things maybe, I don't know, get back to normal? Maybe that's not the right word, but get back to like a new normal?
Definitely, yeah. So I ended up bringing my Australian partner back. So we will definitely be back visiting often, I would expect.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate you being here. I'm a psychologist, so part of my mission is really to help teen girls build bulletproof mindsets. And I really wanted to talk to someone who was an expert in this area. So as a physiotherapist, one of the reasons being that I've worked with a few teens recently and a little while ago who had come to me after having suffered an injury. And that injury kind of prevented them from doing the things they loved. So they either missed out on like big tournaments or kind of had a trajectory in mind, and that kind of got blown out of the water. And also their parents just noticing that, during that recovery process that their mood and mental health were seriously impacted. So I wanted to get a perspective from a realm that I don't know a ton about. So I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you for that invite. It's exciting to talk about that because that's definitely some people that I see, and I've been through that myself as well. So there's overlapping areas with mental health and then sport and injury and physio. So yeah, it'll be exciting to chat about that.
Fantastic. Okay. And I just want to let people know to stay tuned, because at the end, Hannah, I think you're going to share like kind of like a bonus tip that I thought was really important when I took a look at what you were thinking of saying. So I'll just let people know that that's going to be at the end. So if we can kind of start from that place of, if you could tell us a little bit about your business and what it is that you do exactly.
Yeah, so as a private practice physio, that means that anyone can basically come to see us. We are kind of like under the scope of like a musculoskeletal physiotherapist, so meaning more just muscles, joints, bones, nerves. So sort of like injury, restriction, pain that you might have within the body. That's kind of normally who comes to see us. So just comparing that to other types of physio, if you're not quite aware, would be something like a hospital. So dealing more with like cardiorespiratory conditions. So if people are hospitalized, sort of thing, or directly post-operatively helping people get discharged from hospital, or say like a physio who works on a neurological ward helping with like stroke patients, something like that. So those are just different types of physio. So like I said, I'm more of that private practice. They come just with like a pain. They could operatively as well. So that's kind of where a private practice physio fits into the scheme of things. And so that's just where I am in Calgary right now, and that's where I worked in Australia as well.
Okay, so it sounds like in addition to like the recovery component of the kind of the target area for you, there would be pain management as well.
Definitely, yeah, because pain is so complex in itself that like huge components just of that pain management, that education, advice, like that side of physio that we delve deeply into for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it that you love about this area of your work?
So it was kind of one of those reasons to like get into physio as well. It just really being able to connect with people and essentially help them understand more about their body, more about what might be kind of contributing to their pain, and how I can give them some tips or guide them to become more empowered so that they can actually maybe prevent this stuff from happening in the future, and definitely just like be able to kind of live their life without having to think of pain all the time, because that's normal. Pain is not normal. So I want to help them realize that and give them strategies to move their body better to get out of that. So yeah, creating those connections with people is really important. Also, having that one-on-one time. It is a very much like a relationship business where we're in contact. They're telling me about pain in their life, those types of things. So it is fun to be just part of that team and part of that support network for that individual. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I got into it too. Just having a big like sport background, basically playing sport my entire life and still playing sport. Had a couple injuries and I knew that I wanted to do something with movement. And so physio was kind of like that option for me. And I never really had a background. So that's kind of just like where I went with it. And here we are now.
That's really amazing. I think like a lot of people kind of bounce around with ideas or like, I wanted to do this, but it sounds like you really had a good sense of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was, pretty straightforward for me in that sense.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I really appreciate what you said about pain, because I think, you know, just even in the work that I do, oftentimes folks are dealing with a level of psychological pain and physical pain, and just kind of like understanding what the impact of that is on a person's mental health to be constantly living with a degree of pain.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would definitely take its toll. And then it's intertwined with basically everything that you're doing if you are living with that daily pain. And again, like that's not normal. That doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that some people get a bit stuck in the sense that they're like, oh, that's just my back. But it's like, no, we can do more.
Yeah, that's a really hopeful message, because I agree. I can even talk about like within my family, some folks that are living with kind of chronic back pain. Is kind of like, well, that's just the way it is. I wake up and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay. Well, my hope is in this conversation to kind of hone in on things that would be helpful for teen girls and their parents, of course. How do you see your work being important or helpful there?
So in terms of an athlete who becomes injured. So I went through this process myself about 10 years ago when I was playing like competitive soccer. I ended up breaking both my ankles on separate occasions, and that is quite an impact. And so same thing, I have seen a couple teen athletes come to me now that I'm working as well. And it's still one of those things like we were talking about earlier. It's either like a big event that they are working up to. They either got injured within their training, or even with something like outside of their training. They're just doing something for fun. And so the physio aspect, the physio side of things, which like there was bits of this during my recovery, and so now I know that like this should be a bigger part of it. Physio can definitely provide some of those answers that either like the parent might not have, or if they went to see like their GP, just like a family doctor, or even like if they with a surgeon, like a lot of times there are questions that are left unanswered. So you get maybe like just like a real quick blunt answer from like a surgeon or a GP. And again, it's just not like quite their expertise in explaining more things and giving that reassurance. Sometimes that's just that they might not have time for that, or it's just not quite there. And so physio can and should be able to provide that, like asking those extra questions, having that extra time just to actually understand what this injury means for the body and what it then means for recovery, and how that then ties into return to sport. So just answering those questions is huge, and that can be like a huge part of the session. Like I don't even have to physically do something, like we just have to have that chat, and it gives way more just like confidence, understanding to the teen and then to the parent as well. So I think that that's really important for learning how to then, safely get back into sport and what that might look like timeline wise. So yeah, definitely answering questions. The other side of the thing is being part of, again, like that support network and creating that team around the athlete. So what sport they had, like you pretty much always have a team around you, whether it's just like your coach, your parent, like if you have a nutritionist, again, a psychologist, like all those things are so important. So depending on what that athlete had before, either the physio becomes like a pretty strong pillar to kind of drive that recovery process, or they actually start creating that network around the athlete as well. So sometimes, and again, like I didn't quite have this because I don't think anybody like educated us on that, there are so many things that you can do while injured, which kind of leads me into that. So the physio can drive that. So the physio can give activity modifications. They can talk to the coach and see how this athlete can still participate and be part of the team, even though they can't do the contact drills or they can't run with the team. There's just so many other aspects. I feel like that just drops off because there isn't someone who steps up to do that. So and having that direct contact with the coach and not putting it on like the teen or even like the parent's shoulder, like kind of taking that initiative and being that that connecting dot between how the athlete can participate at a reduced level, and giving them other exercises. So whether it's with their coach or then now you add in like a personal trainer or like an exercise physiologist. So you can't train your broken ankle, well, you can train your other leg, you can train your core, you can keep your cardio up, you can do upper body. Like there's 1 million other things that you can keep doing. And I think that that's huge for athletes because most of them are like goal driven or goal oriented. So if you can provide those little successes and those little wins for an athlete and for like an injured athlete, it just gives them something to basically like, they're like, okay, I couldn't do that last week, but I can do that now. And it's just little steps that it leads them towards that recovery. And so then like lastly is kind of creating that communication network as well. So because you're now like, you've answered these questions, like you're part of the team, you're talking to their coach, like you should also just make sure that they feel comfortable then talking to you, whether that's or just making sure that you initiate those follow-up appointments, and taking the lead on that essentially. So it doesn't do like the teen athletes hands of like, all right, now like they don't quite know. So it's just being that leader on that support, building it up that way.
Yeah. There's just so much goodness in what you said. Okay, I just want to just highlight a couple things. So like one of them is the village aspect, that you're a part of that team or like you said, a pillar, that it takes a village in that recovery, and to know that there are some adults. So physiotherapists can be some of those like helping adults as part of that process, and they can alleviate some of the, sounds like, stress for the teen, but also for the parents. The other piece that I really loved was like I think to myself that having a lot of those unknowns can lead to a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry about like all these questions that you might have as a teen or as a parent of the teen. And being the physiotherapist who's like, yeah, I'm here to answer those questions, and creating that relationship with that family so that they feel safe to ask those questions. So awesome. I love that.
Yeah, super important.
Great. Okay. There was just something, and the other piece, sorry, I just had to like bring that back because it just, I think there's that thing of like, what else can I do? And I love that. It's like a mindset shift. It doesn't have to be like an all or none, like, okay, I'm injured, that's it. I can't, be a part of the team, or I can't play this sport. No, it sounds like it's not like that at all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's just like, that's just a huge thing for any pain, injury, recovery. Just, it's not about saying, all right, no, you can't do that. It's about, all right, how can we change it so that you can do a version of it, a variation of it? It is that simple. It's just like not saying no, it's just saying, okay.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a portion of your clients that come to you that don't know that part, that don't know that, hey, there's all these other things that I can do?
Definitely, yeah. I think a bit of the understanding of injury still is that it's like, I'm injured, I need to rest. That's it, and it is that all or nothing. And that there's just so much research and so much going into the opposite of that. It's almost that like it's relative rest is kind of what we call it. So it's stopping doing things. It's how can we just modify things. It's always about modification. It's not the complete rest that was almost recommended like years ago. That's just the best route to go about injuries anymore. Our bodies were made to move, and we just need to like keep getting in that direction. As slow as it might be, or as annoying as that might feel for the athlete, like that's the little steps.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. Is there like a specific story or an example of how you see that work kind of supporting teen mental health?
Yeah, so there was kind of going through similar as what I was just explaining, with like having a teen athlete, for example, had an injury, has a big event coming up. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks from coming to see me. And so basically, like, it's kind of, it's like number one, support, just like knowing that we're there for them, giving them that education on what their like injury was that they came in with. So again, so they have that understanding. The parent was in the room as well, so we're having that discussion. Then like a huge thing, that reassurance. So it's like, this is what the injury is. It's like season ending. It's just that it is definitely like, it's a pretty big speed bump, like, but like, let's work over it. So explaining how they're going to improve, giving them like that structure and those little goals as well. So it was like, all right, so this is what you're going to do when you go to your training. I'm going to speak to your coach. I don't really want you doing that, but let's try this instead. And then doing that, it was definitely weekly. I even saw her twice a week for some of those lead up weeks to the event. And it was basically just to make sure that they were progressing in that sense, because the goal was to make sure that they could actually then compete in that and so it like, that is pretty much what we did. Checked in, made sure her training program kind of like with her, and even then gave her like, we went through, I think it was like the second last session or something like that, and it was just it wasn't on a physical test that I was seeing about her injury. It was actually about like, how do you feel right now about competing in a couple weeks? Like, how do you feel about your recovery? Because if they're not confident about their injury and how they're going to be performing, then that's what I need to then address. So if you're not with that specific move, how can I give you an exercise that trains that? And you do that for the week, you come back and you're like, yep, all right, that's good. Let's move on to that next thing. So that's what it was, a lot of discussion in the last few weeks leading up to that event. So like the first few weeks was like very clear. I'm just like, all right, we need this, this, this. And then the other kind of weeks were, all right, so what do you feel that you need? Are you confident with that? And how can I play into and
Oh, sorry, just that last part just totally cut off. Sorry about that.
Okay. I just said that like, it basically, that's how we finished up the treatment, and we getting her to be able to compete in that 5 weeks later. So that was good.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's a great story. And I loved how there was that, it sounded like, a partnership, really like truly taking in the team's perspective and opinions, and really looking for their goals as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely
Awesome.
discussing that with.
Great. So what are some of the things that you kind of do to take care of your own mental health and overall health?
So I think it's changes as like you get older, and now that I'm in like my career and working, it's definitely gotten better, because I think you just become a bit more aware of it. And so nowadays, like, I definitely make sure that I have, like, if I have a bunch of stuff on, I make sure I try and get outside and get like that 20 minutes of just like being out in the sun, which Calgary is great for. Australia obviously as well, but just making sure that you can like kind of soak that in and take a couple, like 20 minutes away from a phone or your computer or whatever it might be, and actually just kind of like feel the warmth on my face. I really enjoy that. And then I make sure that I get a daily movement in as well. So like I have a training program that I really help, but that if I'm not of a stretch or just something a little bit lighter. So those are kind of like non-negotiables. The other thing is the value of kind of like social contact as well. So I definitely really like, again, like I said, in going into physio, I really like that connection with people. So I tend to gravitate towards kind of like coffee dates, like one-on-one type thing. So I really like that, energizes me. That's like a really, fun thing for me to do. So I think everyone knows that social contact is super important, but like how that actually helps you individually, whether it's a big group thing or something like that, is individual that people need to figure out. So I know it works for me now. And the other thing too is just actually giving myself downtime. So downtime be by chance. You're just like, oh, don't have to do anything right now. I guess I'll just chill. That was almost like pre the huge social media push as well. So nowadays, same thing. Like it's kind of scheduled, but I normally just do it at least before bed. And for me, that's normally like listening to music. So it just gives me, again, just that specific downtime, just so I can kind of take some breaths and go, oh, all right.
Yeah.
That's developed for myself that I find works well for me.
Well, and I love it. It sounds like when you say, works well for me, and I think you said now a couple of times, I'm assuming it's kind of like for me as well, where it's been a bit of a journey, like it's like testing, trial and error. Some things work at different times in our lives. And this is what you've found to be working right now.
Yeah, it's always changing.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so we're just kind of coming to the end. If every teen in the world were listening right now, what is one thing you would want them to know?
All right, the one thing is that your mom usually does know best, so you should listen to her when she listens to this. And within that little nugget, because she always told me how important sleep was, sleep is so important. So like prioritize it, especially in your teen years. Like there's research out there, like sleep is just so important. And it's normally your mom telling you that you need more sleep. So listen to her.
Great. Okay, and where can folks get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or get in contact to work with you?
Yeah, any questions as well. So my email address is hanphysio@outlook.com. My Instagram handle is also just @hanphysio. And where I'm working right now is a clinic in downtown Calgary. It's called Dynamic YYC. And so that's their Instagram as well, or their website is just dynamicyyc.com.
Perfect. And I'll just add all that stuff to the show notes so people don't have to be like scribbling that really frantically if they want to get in touch with you. Okay. Is there like a book or a podcast that you've come across recently that's kind of like stood out to you?
Yeah, I find myself referencing this book. It's called Range. I read it recently. Range by David Epstein. So it's a book that goes into why having like a broad experience across multiple different like ranges of work or sport or whatever it might be is actually like really, really important. So that book I honestly referenced to so many people. And it was just a really good read. Yeah, you're trying out a couple of different things, or yeah, you might not be on like the exact path that you thought you were going to be on. It's actually, I found that book really, really good. Podcast wise, it's called Trained. It's a night training podcast. One of their like head trainers, and he basically discussed like mini interviews about 25-30 minutes as well that go into their holistic fitness. So it talks about like mindset, movement, recovery, nutrition, and sleep, and kind of gets different athletes inputs on what's working for them or if they've overcome something as well. So I find all of them just like very engaging and interesting, and you're listening to athletes that like you probably know as well. So it's they're
Fantastic. Would you say the audience for the podcast would be more like a parent or a teen, or it's good for all ages?
Probably like the teen. Oh, it's good for all ages, but like definitely the teen athlete. If you're just kind of getting that perspective on different aspects of how you can almost just like maximize your own performance. Athletes just talk about what's important in your day to day, and then from a parent's perspective, it would be how can you almost like help your teen athlete maximize their performance.
Fantastic. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so if you are a parent or a teen who's struggling with mental health or looking for some support, you can contact me. I am on Instagram at Therapy with Chantal or Facebook at Pyramid Psychology. I'm just going to wrap up. And Hannah, you had a bonus tip that you wanted to add at the very end. So I will let you add that.
Yeah. So biggest thing is prevention. So we don't even have to go down this huge path of having that season-ending injury or having to deal with how big an injury can be. You start that prevention early. It's just like less likely it's going to happen. If it does happen, you're going to return to sport faster. So prevention is huge. You don't have to be injured to see a physio as well. You can actually you can go to a physio to get prevention strategies. So that would be just like biggest takeaway tip. Start early, and yeah.
Okay, it sounds like every athlete needs to go and see you for prevention services.
Exactly. That's the easiest start.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Right on. Okay, I really appreciate your time. This is a great conversation. I learned a lot. I hope the audience learns a lot. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and inviting me. It was a good chat. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.